Hey, 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 hey.
Wait, I'm not ready.
Hey, hey. She wasn't ready. Hey, hey, hey. Here we are, Rick and Kristin, back with another Fringy episode for you on Easter. That's right. It's Easter,
I
guys.
think it's Resurrection Day.
Is it Resurrection Day or is it Ishtar?
Oh, it could be all of those things. A lot of controversy about Easter this year.
There really is. It's a complicated subject because people are kind of waking up and they're like, okay, if you're telling us to be truthful about everything that we're doing and you know, reading the Bible the way that we should, is it kind of weird that we're doing these pagan customs?
Right.
What say you about that?
I don't know. I mean, I see both sides. Does this mean I've matured and I see both sides?
I think so. I think I
definitely think that it goes back to kind of the condition of the heart is what I think all these things come back to. If you're focusing on Easter bunnies and Easter eggs and all of that kind of stuff, then I think you should probably reevaluate. But if you're celebrating the resurrection of Christ, then I think we should be doing that every day.
Yeah,
it's kind of like Mother's Day and Father's Day. Why do we celebrate Mother's Day and Father's Day when we should be celebrating them every day? It is just another day.
Right.
But people get hung up on the semantics of Easter or whatever you want to call it. And that is then detracting from the spirit of the holiday or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, because I mean, it's very easy to make a case for the fact that this is, you know, a pagan ritual. I mean, I've mentioned a book on the podcast in the past called Pagan Christianity, where, you know, this guy makes a very good case that you know, it is a very pagan background.
I mean, all of our holidays are really.
Exactly. And that's what we have to realize is we know that we've been lied to. We know that we're off. You know, this year they're celebrating Easter today, but Passover is not until like the 22nd of April.
Right.
And so a lot of people are saying, well, there's this huge disconnect between Passover and Easter, and it's supposed to be, this resurrection is supposed to be at the time of the Passover, which is super confusing to people, right? But it just goes to show you how far away we've gotten from the original timeline, but that doesn't change and I think this is the point you're trying to make, and I would agree with you, is we're not getting rid of the intent of the heart, I guess, right, is what you're getting at. And I think that's really the bottom line, is what's the intent of your heart when you're coming into this, whether it's going to church or, you know, having a small group together with your family, or even just getting together and not even going to church and just having time together as community. I think that's all good stuff, you know?
Right. And I guess I don't feel like God's going to be like, oh, you celebrated Easter on the wrong day and we're going to get smote, whatever, because we celebrated it on Easter. I feel like a lot of this stuff is just designed to be divisive, I guess, is the long and short of my opinion.
Yeah. Well,
it's another thing to argue about, and it's why we have thousands of different denominations within the Christian church, because it's another thing to argue about. And what we should be focusing on is Sunday is coming. The resurrection is coming. You know,
the what behind it. Yeah.
Right. It's because obviously if you look at it, even just from a mathematical standpoint, if he's crucified on Good Friday, well, Sunday's only 2 days from Friday, so he couldn't have been in the grave 3 days. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense in that regard. But I think that's just numbers. Like, it's. I think what we should be doing is celebrating the fact that he rose from the dead and how, like, amazing that is, and all of the other things that happened, you know, if you go into what he did during those 3 days and, you know, all of that stuff, it's like, it's a pretty incredible thing. So let's focus on that and call it what you want, or call it nothing, or don't celebrate it. It doesn't really matter, because it's a condition of your heart. We stand before God individually, not as a collective group. So however you feel like it's best and right to celebrate Easter or not celebrate Easter, then do that, because God's put a conviction on your heart in one way or another. So that's
and I think
I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, it's good. I think it's interesting that people get so worked up about certain things, when you get so angry, and we're getting a lot of questions about our last episode, right? And we wanted to talk a little bit about this on this episode, because you get these type of questions where people are almost taken back and baffled that we would even have an episode that would talk about these crazy things. And I think that that's really telling to how far people are willing to go. Right. And when we say we're going to have conversations and we're going to have people on here and we're going to get fringy, like that's what we mean. We're not joking
and
around.
We have people on, if you've listened to us from the beginning, we have had people on. We don't agree with 100% of what everybody says, but we're giving people a platform to tell what they believe in. And then again, individually using your discernment and what God has given you, the gifts that God has given you, to decide whether you believe that stuff or not, or, it's really just getting the information out there. I feel like, and I, we try to be really, aware of if something is very overtly demonic or somebody's really off in the weeds, where it, sometimes there have been things we've trimmed out of episodes because it didn't, or they went a little too far in their description of things. Like we had Zachary King, who was the high wizard in the Church of Satan, and he really got very descriptive in some of the stuff. And so we just didn't feel like it was right to put some of that stuff out. But again, it's just letting people talk. Like we shouldn't be afraid to talk and listen, and we don't have to agree with somebody 100% of the time. There's a lot of things that me and Rick don't agree about, believe it or not, that we are able to listen to each other and go, okay, I can see what you're saying there, but, I kind of tend to lean this way, or, Rick tends to want to go off into the weeds and I tend to want to stay on the road. And, there's a balance. I think that's what gives us balance as a community, is having conversation and then taking from it what you will. Also, we should probably let people know that we're not doing a regular episode today because it's Easter and we had a really weird last weekend and week. So we ended up stranded in Kennewick, Washington, of all places. And our car is now in Idaho. And we had to, who knew it was going to be so hard to find a rental car in Kennewick to get back home? So we had a bit of a weekend, and then Rick was out of town for work for 3 days. And so we've had a bit of a week. So what we're going to kind of lean towards is some current events that I think Rick has a lot of good insight and things to be like keep in the back of your mind about maybe some of the stuff that's going on right now, some of the weirdness. Because while we're celebrating Resurrection Sunday and the awesomeness of that, we can't forget that the world is crazy. It's, that saying where you can put red ants and black ants in the same jar and they're fine. They get along just fine until somebody shakes up the jar and then they start fighting and killing each other. Well, this world is getting shaken up. And so there's a lot of, I think, just fear, maybe anxiety, there's just a lot of, like, you can feel it. You can feel a shift in things. And we've been saying that for a while, but my biggest question for you is, what is going on with this whole eclipse? I know there's a lot of stuff that's going along with it, but why on God's green earth would they be canceling school and telling people to stock up on food and water and all, like, what is going on? It's an eclipse. It's like, they're like, well, we don't want people to be driving and during the eclipse because it's going to get dark. I'm like, cars have headlights? I mean, people drive in the dark all the time. Like, what? What's going on, Rick? Spill it.
Well, you're seeing lots of different things about this eclipse, and we've been, people have not really been paying this much attention to the eclipse since like 2017. That's when the eclipse was really kind of ramping up as being something that people really were paying attention to. But they've been happening for, thousands and thousands of years. It's not like eclipses are new things. And they have lunar eclipses and solar eclipses, total eclipses, annular eclipses. There's all of these different types that they have. And so this one that's coming up is going to be, a total where the solar eclipse is where the sun is going to be blotted out for, I think it's about 3 minutes. It depends on where you're at in the world.
It was like
where
3 to 6 minutes or something.
And so it's going to be traveling in a very, weird pattern, right? Because in 2017, we had the eclipse back then that everybody was talking about.
Which basically came right over us because we're in Oregon. So it basically, it was very cool to watch. But people rented like RVs, and there was like farmers that rented out their whole field for people to come. Like, I mean, it was an event. It was an event.
People were going camping and just getting in spots where they could just see the eclipse really well. It was a big thing that was going on. And then it was, right after that, we got locked down and we went into, it was weird that right after this eclipse happened in 2017, there was so much weirdness that began to happen, right? And if you think timeline wise, all of this stuff started happening. All of the people started waking up. COVID happened, right? And we had a lot of people being kind of jarred awake by the extremes of.
Well, we had the whole election debacle.
2020 election, and even 2016 election was a big deal. So you could see this timeline kind of aligning to the eclipse. And the thing that's interesting about eclipses that we should probably pay attention to is the fact that they're signs from God, right? These are signs in the heavens from God about times and seasons and all of those different things that the Bible says those celestial bodies in the sky are for, right? And so as we observe them, or as the ancient people observed them, they would begin to notice certain patterns and certain things, and they would begin to tell that things were coming, or they knew when to plant and when to harvest and all of those things. And so the thing about these eclipses is this is a message in the sky that nobody can control, right? They can't control these celestial bodies in the sky because God put them in motion, and they do what they do, and they don't stop doing what they're doing. And no matter what you try to do to them, they're not going to stop doing what they're doing. God put them in motion until he says to stop. And there has been times in the Bible where he stopped the sun from moving. And so that's kind of the idea of it being in motion all the time. So if something happens to where they line up, or they're showing you something in the sky, that would probably be a direct message from God about something, right? And so a lot of people have now begun to do research online and figure out that you've got this long list of eclipses that have happened throughout the year, or throughout the thousands of years, and they're on these repetitive patterns, right? These things happen repetitively. So we are seeing that, yes, these celestial bodies are timed. And so it's very interesting when you have this one that happened in 2017, and then you're going to have this one coming up in 2024. And it
seems close together.
It's like a beginning of a cycle and an ending of a cycle, if that makes sense. And that's what a lot of people are starting to put together. It's also drawing very interesting lines for those of you that haven't seen this online yet. It's drawing these very specific lines. This eclipse is going to be going through several cities that are all named Nineveh, which is...
I didn't even honestly know that there was a city in the United States called Nineveh.
Yeah, I didn't either.
And there's 7 of them that just this eclipse is going through.
Yeah, it's a bunch. And so that's a very interesting number, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to go through 7 Ninevehs, which if you go back to the Bible, we're talking about judgment, right? Because that's what he was supposed to take. Jonah was supposed to take the message to the people of Nineveh that God was going to destroy them if they didn't repent. And they did at the last minute. And he saved them, or he spared them. And that's actually what sent Jonah into his little, pity party fit, because he was mad that they saved, that God spared them, because they were a terrible people. They were just a terrible people. And so this is kind of that beginning and end of a cycle. And so a lot of people are wondering, what is the end of this cycle going to look like? And so they started going back into time and looking at different times that this type of a beginning and end cycle has happened, where you have a lunar eclipse on one end and a solar eclipse on the other end. And they went back to 1811. In 1811, they had a very similar situation that happened in the United States, and they actually had a series of earthquakes that went through the United States. So when you're saying that people are being told to stay home and not go to school and to prepare for, food and water and all these things, and that they're actually like, governors are calling up the National Guard for this time.
It's like, what do they know that we don't know? Because it seems silly to do all of that just for an eclipse.
It is a lot, right? And I've seen online, you've seen people like filming with their cell phone parking lots full of buses and basically like resources for natural disasters. And so this is all very interesting, right? Because why would you have all of this stuff put together for an eclipse that we've seen happen many, many times? I mean, thousands of years we've been having eclipses. They come and go. It's supposed to last 3 minutes. We're calling up the National Guard for 3 to 6 minutes of no sunlight. And so that's one very kind of interesting thing is the pattern of it, the cities that it's rolling through. And people are also noticing that it's making the 2 Hebrew, I think it's the Av and the Tav or something like that. Anyway, you can see a lot of this online if you do research into it, but I don't put a lot of energy into all of that stuff. What I like to put energy into is what's matching up to the timing of what's going on. And so there are a few other things that are going on at the same time. So if you go to NASA's website, you'll find that they're actually going to be launching 3 rockets towards the sun at the exact same time that this eclipse is happening. And the official narrative goes that they basically want to see what the ionosphere is doing during this eclipse, because they're thinking when stuff happens up there in the ionosphere during this eclipse, they could get some research. They could get some information, some data on what's going on up there. But the interesting thing about it is, why would you shoot rockets at the sun to gather information during an eclipse? And some people are like, well, it's just a very convenient time, because this is the only time that you can get this data, is when this is happening. So this is the reason for the timing. It's nothing nefarious or nothing weird. It's just, this is the best time for it. And that could be true. However, you lost me at NASA, the people that lie to us all the time about everything. And so if I can't trust them about anything else, because they're lying about space, they're lying about spacewalks, they're doing it in the water. You've seen videos of bubbles, you've seen videos of wires and all kinds of CGI mishaps. I mean, if you haven't seen these things, get on YouTube, you can find them. These are all discrepancies that they've done over the years. And so if NASA is lying, and that's been pretty well proven that they have, what are they lying about now? They're telling us that they're doing something, but what are they really doing? And it's very
So what
interesting.
do you think they're really doing? You think they're trying to? You think they're trying to find a hole in the firmament? Do you think that when the eclipses line up, they think that that's a way to get out? Like, I don't know.
Some people have speculated that they're trying to shoot at the firmament, but they've already done that. You know what I mean? They've already tried that and failed back in the day. And so I don't know why they would do that now, unless they think that there's some sort of correlation between the sun and the strength of the firmament. And maybe they think at low strength during an eclipse, it would be the best time to hit the firmament. That's all speculation. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But maybe that would be the case.
Here's my concern with some of the other stuff is I'm just going to read this. I didn't read the whole article because I wanted to see what you thought.
Okay.
It says CERN to test world's most powerful particle accelerator during April solar eclipse to search for invisible matter that secretly powers our universe.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound like the ether or like something else that we already know exists? Like what are they really doing? I mean, I don't know. CERN is a very weird place, phenomena, whatever.
Yeah. Well, the official information about CERN is that about 2 years ago, they discovered what they call the God particle, which they basically take this hadron collider where they take these particles and they spin them in circles really, really fast, and then they slam them into each other. And when they do that, it causes this moments of explosion. And when they're doing this, I don't know exactly how it works because I would get paid what they get paid, but I don't.
That would be nice.
Yeah. And so as they're slamming them together, somehow they found that there is this one particle that stood out from the others, but it was super unstable. And it had so much almost, infinite power within it that they were like, okay, this is like the God particle. This is like the beginning of all other things. It's almost like they broke the particles down to its base zero level, and they got this particle. That's why they would call it a God particle, because that would be like the beginning of all other particles. But as I said, it's pretty unstable, and it quickly devolves into other particles. So they can't do anything with it.
So they can't harness it.
They can't harness it.
Because realistically, that's what they're trying to do, is harness this energy for whatever reason. But they're trying to control this energy that they're finding.
Well, and they're also trying to find what's called that dark matter. You maybe heard of dark matter. It's basically. Is
this like the Spider-Man movie?
Well, no.
It's like the gooey, drippy black stuff that like turns them into the bad Spider-Man.
No, unfortunately, it's not like that. But they basically think that it's what makes like black holes and stuff like that. It's very astrological. Like there's a lot of dark matter in space, which is basically like nothingness, right? But it's energy. And so they're thinking that all of this energy is this dark matter, but they don't know how it works or where it comes from. But the problem is it doesn't exist. It's ether. Right. And so they must be doing something else, because they already know about ether.
Right.
And they already know about all of that. This dark matter stuff, that's all BS. It doesn't exist. It's all ether. They're trying to throw us off by calling it different things. When they say space and dark matter and all of this, they change everything light to dark, right? Ether is all about light. It's the medium for light. And so what they're calling it now is dark matter. And what a lot of people think that they're doing at CERN is really trying to open up a portal or raise some sort of a demon or summon Satan himself or whatever. I don't know if that's really the case.
They're trying to figure out how to release things from like Sheol or whatever. They're trying to summon things before their time, kind of a thing.
So nobody really knows why, again, they're shooting rockets at it, but we also don't know why they're, after 2 years of, finding the God particle and then taking 2 years off to reconfigure and reconstruct and get set up for this next set of experiments that they're going to be doing. It just so happens that the 8th of April during the eclipse is when they've decided to start back up the White Rabbit Hadron Collider.
What do you think is the significance of that? Like, why would they be shooting rockets and trying to open up CERN again during that time? Like, are these all connected? Are they trying to do the same thing, like, through different means?
Yeah, it's really hard to say because you could speculate all day long, right? But you can go back to the news and think about when they were talking about blotting out the sun because of global warming, right? That wasn't that long ago.
Chemtrails that they spray so that we aren't getting the vitamin D that we should be.
They're always talking about like protecting us from the sun, but then they worship the sun. And so it's like this weird dichotomy because if you know what Satanism is, it's really like a mixture of paganism and sun worship. Right. A lot of the deities back in the day were, they were worshiping the sun because that's where they thought all of their energy and all their life force and everything came from.
Right.
And so these Satanists are basically doing the same thing. They're worshiping the sun, and they're basically taking on these same religious ideologies from the past and continuing those on. So who knows what kind of a secret meeting, if it is the bad guy. So this is the other thing. Are we talking about who's in charge right now? Who's really in charge other than God? I mean, of the planet. Who's running things? A lot of people would say you've got good guys and bad guys, and you've got the cabal, right? These people that are coming out in the news right now, like the P. Diddy's and the Jay-Z's and they're saying that P. Diddy is basically the Epstein of rap music, and that he was the guy that was doing everything that Epstein was doing, but he was just doing it for the music industry in a different way. And so what Epstein was doing was very similar. So we're talking cameras in planes, cameras in rooms, in all of his places, the music industry throwing these big parties, sponsoring these big parties, and then honeypotting and catching all these people in lewd activities, whether it be sacrifices or underage children or whatever. They catch them in these compromising positions, and now they own them, right? It's a
blackmail.
That's a blackmail game that they play. And so the understanding of this lawsuit that just came out is that Diddy was kind of one of the kingpins of setting all of this stuff up, a lot of how Epstein did, and I think very soon we're going to start to see some other names. I think more names are going to keep coming out. We've already seen like TD Jakes has been named, which I'm not surprised because, look at the guy. He's a name it and claim it guy, right? Mm-hmm. If he's all about the money and he's all about the fame and he's all about all that stuff and driving nice cars, you could probably lump in like Kenneth Copeland and all of these like Joel Osteen's, all these dudes that have all the money and the mega churches and stuff like that. They're probably working for the bad guys, so don't be surprised if you guys start seeing these type of names in the news. Don't be surprised if you start seeing some of your famous actors that you really like, or famous football players or basketball players that you've liked for a long time being somehow connected or controlled by this entity that we would call the deep state or the cabal. Because there's going to come a lot more names and a lot more is going to come out. And
do you think Tupac is still alive?
That's a hard one because I don't think so. I think everybody wants Tupac to be alive really bad.
I mean, I do.
But I don't know. I do think that it was either Diddy
The diddler?
The diddler that put the hit out on him, or it was him that did it himself. But I don't think so. I think he put the hit on Tupac because Tupac was real mad after he got shot 5 times, and then he came up with that song.
You mean when they tried to kill him the first time in the elevator?
And then he came out with that song and was basically like, I'm coming for you. Mm-hmm. I think Diddy got scared and put out the hit.
Sorry, I derailed the conversation. I was just curious.
This is what we do here. We talk about all these things.
This is a normal evening in the
This is the Fringy space. We never know where we're going to go.
No, we don't.
So I would say things to look out for the future is just obviously keep watching the banks, right? We're seeing a lot of the banks are going down. The stock markets are continuing to go down. I wasn't kidding when I said that this stuff's coming, guys. It's not going away. If you're not paying attention to BRICS, all of these other countries that are basically saying we're not actually dealing with the dollar anymore. You guys should look that up. BRICS, BRICS. That's something to be paying attention to because more countries keep adding to that. And the more countries that add to that and say we're not going to use this dollar anymore, the less valuable the dollar becomes, and then it crashes, right? And so it's inevitable. A lot of people are saying, and I'm not a financial advisor, but a lot of financial advisors that I listen to are saying that this is inevitable. It's just a matter of time. Now, it's not an if, it's a when. So if you guys have a lot of money in the bank, or if you have investments in stock markets,
what if you
stuff like
don't
that,
have a lot of money in the bank?
Then you're good. Yeah, just
can we?
You're going to be just as broke as you were last time.
Can we get more money in the banks?
Yes.
Okay, so another thing that I was curious to hear your thoughts on.
Okay.
This bridge collapse. Mm-hmm. I've seen a ton of videos. I'm to the point now where I don't even believe a lot of the videos that I see because of AI and all this other stuff, but it does not appear that this bridge collapse happened because a ship ran into the pylon.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, for a couple of people that just got off of a series on false flags, this is terrible timing for a false flag to happen because we
ain't buying it.
We ain't buying it, right? We've got eyes to see and ears to hear now, and we're paying attention to everything that they say and do, and they can't get away with it. I mean, you're seeing videos of, the news is showing you birds flying by the wreck, and then the birds just like disappear, like it's CGI, and you're like, wait a minute. What happened to the birds, and why is it CGI? Why does it have to be CGI?
Right.
Why can't you just be filming it? So that's weird, right? And then you've got all kinds of people saying that's how a bridge collapses if you're doing a controlled demolition of it, just like they said with 9/11.
Right.
That's what a building looks like falling into its own footprint. And here's the thing
for me is I start to, when you have these like structural engineers and these guys that this is their job is to look at this kind of stuff, and these guys are saying this looks like a controlled demolition, I feel like we should listen to them because these people were saying this when 9/11 happened. They were like, no, there's no way that a plane hitting the top of this tower could have done this. This was a controlled demolition. And nobody listened to them. Nobody listened to them back then. And then we look at it now and we're like, oh gosh, it really does look like a controlled demolition, does it? And they're probably like, yeah, it sure does. Yeah, I've been in the loony bin for the last 20 years because nobody would believe me. These guys are saying this looks like the way you would take down a bridge if you were going to decommission it.
Yep. And the way that boat, I mean, you can see the boat in slow motion or in the time lapse video that a lot of people have shown. And it's very clearly driving directly at the bridge, pylon or stand or whatever you call it.
It appears very purposely steering towards it.
Yeah.
almost.
And early on, a lot of people were speculating. They're like, "Oh, it lost power, and that's why it ran into it." But then the power came back on, and it looked like they were trying to turn. And it's like, no, the power was going on and off, and that's one thing altogether. But they still have control of the steering of the ship when the power goes out.
This isn't the first time in history that a ship has lost its electricity. I mean, that happens all the time. I've watched Deadliest Catch. I feel like I know the Bering Sea very well now. They lose power all the time. You still have control of your vessel. Like, there are certain things that you lose, your navigation or whatever. But I mean, if a guy is driving a cargo ship of that size, don't you think he's probably looking out the window? And he probably knows he's in a harbor, and he probably knows that there's a bridge there. So if the power does go out and he loses some navigation, he still has eyes to look out and be like, oh, we don't want to hit that, do we? Like, that part doesn't make any sense to me.
And that's another thing. There was no tugboat. There's supposed to be tugboats taking them in and out of harbor like that. They have certain protocols that they follow, and a tugboat's one of them. Another thing is horns. They're supposed to be laying on the horns when they're getting anywhere near that bridge, and there was no horns. So it was just really fishy at first when we were kind of putting all those pieces together. But then you realize the enormity of what they just did, whoever did it, the enormity of what just happened, because that bridge separates so many ships from that. And that's like one of the top 10 in and out bays.
Well, here's
ports.
the thing that I saw. It says 2 of the fastest U.S. sea lift ships trapped by Baltimore bridge collapse. The blocked entrance to the port of Baltimore has stranded a total of 4 cargo ships that are on call to support U.S. military operations.
Yeah.
So if they're calling up the National Guard and they're doing all of this stuff to go back to the Eclipse conversation, is this going to affect that?
Yeah, it's hard to say because those ships can't get out, and then the other ships can't get in, because not only did that bridge fall down, but it's still like in the water blocking everything. So you can't go past it. And then they said it took like 5 years to even build the thing. So not only is it down, but it's down for a while. It's not, I mean, it's building a bridge of that magnitude is not going to be quick. But Biden was very clear that the American taxpayers are going to pay for it. So that's good news.
Was he very clear?
Was he
kind of mumbly?
He was mostly mumbly. And then he had to go and like waddle back into his own office. He opened his own door. There wasn't any military personnel or Secret Service there to open his door for him like you usually see with a real president. But these are the small things that tell you that he's not the real guy. He's not the president, right? Because if you have a guy stumbling around by himself, that's not how the president usually walks around, right? He usually has an entourage everywhere he goes. He usually has people opening the door for him, ushering him from here to there. Like, it's usually a thing. And when you see this guy wandering around and opening his own door, that should clue you in that he's not the real guy. He's not the real president. So should we get real conspiracy on people? Because I've been talking for a long time about this cleanup of the deep state, right? I believe that there's a cleanup going on of the deep state where you have all these bad actors out there that have been controlling our world for a very long time. And part of the process of cleaning that up is getting rid of the financial system that we currently know, the SWIFT system, which is run by the Fed, which we've talked about in the past, is not federal, nor is it a reserve. It's not part of the government at all. It's a private owned business company ran by the Rothschilds. And so there is a book
by Laura Sanger that is very interesting. That's called The Roots of the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, we need to get Laura on here. Yeah. But so understanding that in order to get rid of this debt slave system that they've put us in, we have to we have to purposely crash it. And that's scary for everybody, because everybody's like, why would we crash the economy? How are we all going to live? How are we all going to survive? Well, if you do crash an economy, you also want to probably logistically have a backup plan or a plan B or something running alongside of it, right? So as this program's running, this program is coming in and running. And so if you're changing over a software program at work or something like that, you're going to mirror it, and it's going to be running at the same time for a while. And then you slowly out the old program and continue running the new program. And so I believe that that's what they're doing, is they're tearing down this old system and they're bringing in this new system. Part of that is going to be financial, which we'll have an episode on in the future. Also, I think a lot of this stuff that's going on with infrastructure, like some of these bridges, and because this bridge isn't the only bridge that's been hit or had things happen to it in the last couple of days. You've had bridges that have had fires underneath them, other bridges that have been ran into. They haven't all collapsed, but there's been more. If you get on the internet and do some searches, you'll find there's been several other bridges that have been affected too. So I think that they're doing a mass cleanup operation of satanic pedophile cult type people that are all throughout our government, Hollywood, our music industry, and all of that. And you're seeing that in the forefront of your mind now in mainstream media, which as years ago now you wouldn't have seen stuff like this, but now you're seeing it. P. Diddy's being grabbed up. They're talking about pedophilia. They're starting to make connections with him and Jay-Z. They're starting to make connections with Jay-Z and Obama, which is going to be very interesting. They're also making connections between Haiti and the Clinton Foundation. All of these connections are beginning to be made on mainstream media. And so when we've been talking about that for almost a year now, or over a year now, these are the things that are now coming out to the forefront of people's minds. So what do I think is happening during this eclipse? I don't think it's going to be crazy at all. I think it's going to be all part of a wake-up campaign to continue to reveal to the public of the world that we are being saved from this satanic cabal. And the way that they tell us that is going to be very difficult for a lot of people to understand, right? What they're trying to avoid is mass population unrest. Civil wars are not what we want, right? We want to wake up the American people. We want to wake up the world. We want to bring everybody back into community, but we also have to get rid of all these bad actors. And in that meantime, as they're flipping these switches between the financial systems and the new internets and the new way of life and the new energies and all these things that they're going to be doing in the future, you're going to see a lot of unrest for a little bit, because people are going to be confused. They're going to wonder where all their money went. They're going to wonder why their internet doesn't work all of a sudden. They're going to wonder why we have a complete blackout of all of our electricity. And that's going to be scary. And they're going to probably try to blame all of that stuff on this eclipse and CERN and the rockets and all of that stuff. But I don't think it's any of that stuff. I think they're dropping the power on purpose so that they can replace it. I think they're dropping the money system on purpose so that they can replace it. And I think that they're dropping out all of the internet on purpose so that they can replace it. And it's going to be very scary and choppy for a little bit. It's going to be super confusing for some people. But I think as we get closer and closer to this eclipse, we're going to find that the reality is that what we've been saying on this podcast for a long time is actually happening. And we're seeing more and more of that evidence as we move forward. And the more pieces that we put together over this last year, you guys should be seeing a full picture now of what's going on. And as confusing as it is, it's beginning to all of the puzzle pieces that we're all grasping for and coming from all different directions, they're starting to come together and make a picture that's a little more clear, that there is something going on. That guy that's in the White House is weird, and that doesn't make any sense. And why does he have Obama following him around everywhere lately? And what's Obama doing meeting with people in foreign countries right now? Why isn't he just hanging out and retired? What's going on? What's Obama worried about right now? Why is he going around talking to people? Where's Jay-Z and Beyonce? Where'd they go?
Where's Tupac?
Where's Tupac? That's what Kristin wants to know. So some things to think about, guys. There's a lot. I know there's a lot of heavy things that are going on in our world. And I think the first reaction that everybody wants to make is fear and stress and anxiety and what's going to happen. And as an example, when we talk about like the millennial reign already coming and going, the first reaction from people is fear. Like, so Jesus isn't coming back? So what do we have to worry about? Like, what do we have to look forward to now? If the millennial kingdom already came, where'd Jesus go? Jesus wouldn't leave us after he came. Like, all of this bundle of anxiety and worry comes, and people begin to freak out. And that's not what we're supposed to be doing as Christians. We're supposed to be saying, we're putting all of our faith and all of our hope in the fact that Jesus has done what he said he was going to do. He came, he died on a cross, and he rose. All of those things he did. He also took the keys of sin and death from the enemy, and he has full control. And it is his opportunity to give back to all of us. And it says,
well, and logistically, so if the millennial reign did already happen, that shouldn't be scary for people, because it says in Revelation that Satan has to be loosed for a short time, whatever that means, because we also know that a year to us is not the same to God, right? He's very clear on that. So if Satan is loosed and he is in charge right now, like he's prowling around and doing what he wants to do, so then what happens? So if that's already happened and we're in the time of Satan being out and about, going along his merry way, what happens after that? Well, Jesus comes back again and he creates a new heaven and a new earth. So there's nothing, if that has happened, and believe me, I'm not completely sold on if this has happened or not. I don't think any of us could be completely sold on it because we just don't know. But if that is the case, then we should still have that sense of peace, knowing that he's coming back and creating a new heaven and a new earth. That Satan's not going to be loosed forever. It's for a short time. So make sure that you don't let because most of the time when we get these comments from people like, oh, this is so ridiculous. We've been, it's the second coming is what we've been waiting for. And, nobody ever talks about the third coming. Like, what is that? Is that even a thing? And if you read it, it does appear to be a thing. It's just that nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
So,
and you have to ask yourself, why? Why?
Right.
Why have we not been talking about, why does it say in Revelation 21, after Satan is thrown back into the to the lake of fire, and he's not a problem anymore,
and he's dealt with for good,
then that's when he wipes away all tears,
right,
and all joy is restored to everybody, and there's no more need for the sea or for the sun. Everything is going to be in harmony. And Jesus is going to be our all in all. He's going to be enough for us, and we're going to be enough for him. And that is going to be the way that he designed it to be. So everybody is so worried about this. And I'm like, what? But that's like the end. That's like the good part.
Right. It's like watching a movie and stopping it, 20 minutes before the end. You're not going to do that. You're going to want to know what happens at the end. This is not the end. Like, even if the millennial reign already happened, that's not the end. There's there's victory.
Yeah.
And we know who wins at the end.
So regardless of whether the millennial reign has already happened or it's still to come, there is always hope in Jesus either way. Mm-hmm. And you have to remember that where your faith lies is in the Word of God and in Jesus. And it doesn't lie in being right or being wrong or having these fights with people. You know, you get on the internet nowadays and everybody's just trying to, and they're Christians trying to fight Christians into being better Christians. And you're just like, guys, you're so upset about people talking. Like, you're getting mad about people talking or believing something that you don't believe. And we need to get to the place where Jesus wants us to be, which is that we are accepting of all people. We don't allow them to stay where they are, right? We want to continue to teach them, to grow, to all of those things. We accept them for the person, not for the sin, right? Love the sinner, not the sin. Right. And I think when we start going off into the fringy weeds, people get a little nervous because they're like, oh my gosh, you're going to lead all these people to hell. It's like, that's not what's going to happen. Like, it's just not. If that is what happens, it's not because of us. Right. Because it's all the intent of the heart, right? Jesus is judging the heart. And if your intent is to love God, then he's going to be good with you and you're going to be good with him. And if you're loving your neighbor as yourself and you're doing all those things that he asked you to do, honoring your father and mother and all that, you're good with him. He's good with you. But if you're fighting on the internet, he doesn't like that.
He don't like that.
He just don't like that. He's your daddy and he's going to be like, kids, you better quit that fighting back there. Don't make me take off this flip-flop.
Around.
All right. Well,
anything else that you had that was a burning desire to talk about?
I don't think so. I just wanted to do a couple of current events because I know people are getting super frustrated that this is taking a long time.
We haven't done any fringy morsels for a while because life has been busy, and we are going to implement them again, but we just haven't had time, honestly. These things take a lot more time and effort and energy than I think a lot of people realize. So we just haven't had time. But we did want to bring up a few of these current events that are happening right now because we get a ton of questions from people, and there's a lot of people that are legitimately very concerned about all of this stuff. So to get on, we wanted to address the millennial reign piece because people be up in arms about it. Some people are very supportive. I mean, it's the same that we get on every episode. There's always people that don't agree with some of the stuff that we put out, or, some people that feel the need to comment and tell us that we mispronounced something, at 10 minutes and 2 seconds into our episode or whatever. And that's fine. Those kind of people are there and we love them anyway. But we did want to address the millennial reign piece and just say, you don't know if it's happened or not. Just the same as we don't know if it's happened or not. But it doesn't, we're not going to hell because we're speculating on whether it's happened or not. That's the bottom line. Same thing as we're not going to hell if we celebrate Easter. And, it's all this extreme one way or the other. It doesn't have to be an extreme one way or the other. We can just meet in the middle and we can just say, okay, you believe what you want to believe. You read your scripture and you're getting revealed things by God, and I'm getting revealed things by God also. And that's okay. That's what makes us, we're all part of the body, but we're not all the same body part. So if I'm hands and your feet, that's fine. We don't have the same function. We don't have the same job. We don't do the same thing, but we're part of the same body. So it doesn't do us any good to chop off the foot when it's working perfectly fine just because we don't like what it's doing. So keep that in mind when all of this fringy stuff is getting talked about, because it's we live in a day and age where people, like, you have to pick a side.
Mm-hmm.
You're either this or you're that. You're either red or you're blue. You're either, whatever, pro this, pro that. Like it's all silly to me, honestly. Like, we're all part of the same body, and we can all be doing different things to glorify God in whatever way He's revealed them to us. As long as we are legitimately believing in God and seeking the truth for ourselves, then I don't see how we could be wrong.
Yeah. And remember, Jesus is for us. He wants us to get this stuff figured out. He wants us. He doesn't like that we're being deceived, but it is part of the plan. It's very clear that it's part of the plan for us to be deceived at some point or another.
And if you look throughout Scripture, God is much more harsh on the deceivers, not the deceived. So we have to remember that we don't know if the Earth is flat or if it's a globe, but it doesn't really matter which way we believe. It doesn't really matter, because He's not going to be mad at us if we believe the Earth is flat. He's not going to be mad at us if we believe the Earth is a globe. You know who He's going to be mad at? Whoever told us the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been fun, being able to just catch up with you guys and get some of these things out there that you might have had some questions about. If you do have questions, we're always open to them. And we love to do stuff like this where we get to interact and maybe answer some of the stuff that we know you guys are wondering about. So hopefully we cleared some things up and didn't actually confuse you more. But
it's definitely a possibility.
You never know. So we're going to get out of here for this one. We hope you guys have a wonderful resurrection day. We know that Jesus is alive. He is alive and well. He's doing everything, advocating for you at the right hand of the Father, like He always has been. And there's no need to worry. Put your faith in Him, and He will, mention you. When the day comes to His Father, He'll be like, "Yeah, I know that guy.
I know that guy. Out.
He's pretty cool." Yeah,
is he going to retweet? Is he going to retweet?
He might retweet him and say, "Yeah, you can come in."
Yeah.
All right, you guys, this has been a long fringy morsel, but we're glad that you guys were here on this special Resurrection Day. Have a great rest of your day. If you got eggs to open, do it. If you got bunnies to hug and snuggle, do it. If that offends
I don't have a bunny.
If
Where
that
do we get a bunny?
You, by all means, don't do any of it.
Don't do any of it. Don't do any of it. You do you, boo.
You do you, boo. And you love Jesus all the same. All right, you guys, have fun, and don't do anything we wouldn't do.